Here's a contradiction most people never question. The more you listen, the less you are heard. You think being the quiet one, the understanding one, makes you noble. But in the eyes of the world, it makes you forgettable. Useful, yes, but forgettable. And that is how your slow disappearance begins. Today's video will sting, because we're going to strip away the illusion you've clung to for years. That being available, selfless, and endlessly understanding somehow guarantees love, respect, or peace. It doesn't. It guarantees silence, your silence. But we won't stop there, because once you see the game for what it is, I'll show you how to stop playing it like a pawn. You'll learn why people keep using you, and how to become the person they think twice about taking for granted. This is not just philosophy, this is survival, for thinkers who've been taught to shrink. So if you've ever felt invisible in your own life, this may be the most important video you've ever watched. Let's begin. Tell me honestly. When was the last time someone asked you how you were doing, and actually stayed to listen? Not just a polite, "How are you?" but a real pause, a space made for you, a moment where your story was the center. Hard to remember, isn't it? That's the curse of being the listener. You've been conditioned to absorb everyone else's emotions, but express none of your own. You've been the shoulder, the therapist, the reliable soul. And now, you've become expected, not respected. Expected. You don't speak because you're kind. You stay quiet because you don't want to be a burden. You think, they have enough to deal with. I'll just handle mine quietly. But here's the Machiavellian truth no one told you. In a world of constant noise, the quiet ones are not seen as wise. They are seen as weak. People interpret your silence as agreement. They interpret your availability as disposability. They interpret your empathy as a lack of boundaries. And slowly, without realizing it, your goodness becomes their tool. They come to you with drama, but never with presence. They take your time, your energy, your emotional labor, but never offer clarity, support, or even reciprocation. And perhaps the most brutal part? You continue playing the role because deep down you hope they'll eventually notice. But Machiavelli would laugh at that idea. He knew the game. People do not reward what they take for granted. They only respect what they fear losing. So let me ask you directly. What would happen if you stopped being the listener? What would they do if you said, "No, not today"? Would they stay or vanish? If that question terrifies you, you're already caught in the trap. But don't worry, we're just getting started. In the next chapter, we'll expose exactly why people are drawn to you, and how that attraction can turn toxic when left unchecked. Stay with me, and if this already feels uncomfortably true, it's time you subscribe to something better. Join this tribe of thinkers, because the world's been too loud for far too long. Let's make something clear. If people constantly open up to you, if they always need your advice, your understanding, your time, it's not because you're safe, it's because you're absorbent. They can throw everything at you, and you won't throw anything back. You see, there's a hidden cost to being emotionally available. It makes you visible to the broken, but invisible to the balanced. People are drawn to your light, yes, but some come only to warm their hands, not to tend to yours when you burn out. And here's the dark truth. When you don't set boundaries, you attract people who don't believe in them. You've become their emotional dumping ground, because they know you'll take it. You'll listen, you'll nod, you'll soothe, and when they walk away lighter, you'll be the one left carrying what they couldn't. Let me ask you, have you ever sat alone after a deep conversation and felt like you'd just run a marathon you didn't sign up for? They said, "Thanks for being there, I feel so much better." And you smiled, while feeling hollow, because no one asked you what you needed. Not once. That's not connection, that's transaction. But here's the Machiavellian twist. This isn't just their fault, it's also yours. You taught them how to treat you. Every time you made yourself endlessly available, every time you ignored your own exhaustion, you reinforced a rule. I don't matter as much as you do. You didn't say it, but your behavior did. Now pause. Think about your life. Think about the friendships, the relationships, the family dynamics. Where are you the listener, and where have you truly been heard? The difference will tell you everything. But don't let this realization paralyze you. Let it arm you, because in the next chapter, we'll reveal how to flip the dynamic, Not by becoming cold or selfish, but by making sure your voice enters the room before your silence does. We'll show you how to speak in a way that commands energy without raising your voice, and how to draw boundaries so clear they echo. Stay with me. This is where your power begins. There's a certain kind of anger that doesn't shout. It doesn't scream or slam doors. It just sits quietly inside you and rots. It's called silent resentment. And it grows in people who spend their lives making space for others while being silently starved themselves. You've felt it before, haven't you? That moment after you listen, again, after you gave your time, your energy, your care, again, and they left, again. Not asking about you, not staying for your story, just assuming. You're fine, because you always are, right? But you're not. And the rage isn't loud, it's passive. It shows up in the smile that feels fake, in the I'm okay that tastes like poison, in the deep, gnawing thought that whispers, they only like me when I'm useful. That's the price of not being heard. It's not just emotional fatigue, it's identity decay. You begin to forget what your own voice sounds like, because you've used it so long to serve others, you've forgotten how to serve yourself. And here's where it gets dark. Resentment, when unspoken, doesn't disappear. It transforms into guilt, into anxiety, into self-loathing, into physical fatigue, insomnia, even illness. It buries your spirit under a mountain of fake peace. Machiavelli would tell you this: a ruler who listens but never speaks becomes a servant, and a servant who forgets his worth becomes a slave. So ask yourself, how many friendships do you maintain out of obligation? How many conversations do you entertain just to avoid discomfort? How often do you sacrifice your truth in the name of keeping the peace? Here's the catch. If you're always creating peace for others, but never for yourself, that's not empathy, that's erasure. But we're not done, because in the next chapter, we take all this discomfort and weaponize it into clarity. You'll learn how to shift the dynamic without burning bridges, how to reclaim your voice without starting a war, and most importantly, how to speak so others finally hear you and never forget you again. If you've stayed with me this far, you're not just a listener anymore. You're someone ready to be heard. You've been silent so long your voice might feel like a foreign language. But let me remind you of something powerful. Your silence was never peace. It was just the absence of conflict for everyone else. Now it's time to reclaim what was always yours. Your truth, your space, your energy. But here's the key. You don't need to yell to be heard. You just need to stop whispering your needs and calling that kindness. The first step is simple, though not easy. Start disappointing the wrong people. Say no without guilt. Withdraw from conversations that drain you. Stop explaining your boundaries as if they're up for negotiation. Watch how uncomfortable they get. Watch who gets angry. Watch who disappears. And don't panic. That's the point. Because those who vanish when you show your true voice were never listening to begin with. And here's where it gets Machiavellian. The people who once took you for granted will either adjust or reveal themselves. Both are victories. You don't have to attack. You don't have to fight. You only have to stand still, clear, certain. Imagine this. Someone starts unloading their emotional baggage on you again. But this time you say calmly, I care about you, but I'm not in the space to hold this right now. They might flinch. They might pout. But you just made your first move toward freedom. And here's what no one tells you. When you stop being the listener for everyone else, you finally start listening to yourself. That inner voice you buried years ago. It doesn't shout, it waits. And now it's your turn to hear it. We're not done, because in the final chapter, I'll show you how to rebuild your emotional world from the inside out. So you're no longer a vessel for others, but a fortress for yourself. Stay with me. It gets beautiful. Let me tell you something very few people will ever say out loud. You don't need to be useful to be loved. You don't need to be strong to be respected. And you don't need to carry other people's pain to prove you're good. The world tricked you. It told you that being there for everyone was your role. your gift, your identity, but what it really handed you was a disguise. A cloak of compassion that hid your exhaustion. A mask of calm that hid your rage. Now it's time to take it off. You don't need to become cruel, but you do need to become sovereign. Because the truth is, leaders aren't the ones who talk the loudest. They're the ones who know when to speak and when to walk away. They're the ones who hold presence, not just space. So let's rebuild. You start by honoring your inner signal. You know it, the tiny flicker in your chest that says, "This doesn't feel good. I don't want to say yes. I'm exhausted." That voice, that's you. Not the version of you that exists for others, but the real one. The one you've buried under years of performing emotional strength. From now on, you protect that voice like it's sacred. Because it is. Rebuilding your inner world isn't about becoming selfish. It's about becoming whole. Imagine a life where your energy is no longer drained by people who only come to take. Where your yes actually means something, because you've reclaimed your right to say no. Where you are heard, respected, and seen, because you no longer tolerate anything less. This is not just emotional healing. This is psychological power. And now, it's yours. If you made it to the end of this video, you're not just a listener anymore. You're part of a tribe of minds who refuse to be used. So if this spoke to you, don't disappear back into the noise. Drop a comment, join the tribe, and remember, your voice is not a background instrument, it's the damn melody.